All right. So this is how, again, practice management is being divided throughout. And again, 65 items, 59 are scored, 6 are pre-test. The reason why they lose the 6 pre-test is items that they're evaluating and they don't know whether they're going to move forward with to implement it in the exam or not. This is the way that they can test those items, um, to continue to create content, right? So the 4 sections, what are they all about? Well, business operations. So business operations, which it says is 20 to 26% of the exam, has different objectives. In this section, you will need to understand that running a practice requires attention to staffing, regulations, insurance, ethics, and appropriate standard of care. You're gonna hear the word standard of care a lot. And standard of care, again, I want to point it out now because I just mentioned it. Um, every profession has its own standard of care, and for us is the word reasonable and prudent, and it just means that any other architect within the same location, same region, and same circumstances would do the same thing. It's just appropriate, right? So doesn't talk about being the best, the highest, the greatest, the awesome designer. No, no, no. Talks about the standard of care, what's to be expected, and you're always gonna be sued or questioned regarding whether you've applied the standard of care or not. So in the exam, and this is more specific, but if you all asked, which one of the following advertisements are appropriate, and one of them, the architect says, we are the best architect in the region, and the other one says, we are an architectural firm that focuses on residential and commercial projects. The second one is better than the first one because they're saying what they do, but they're not saying they're the best. You should never say that you're the best. That's something that you can never prove. It's almost like if you're saying you're perfect, you can never really prove perfection like that. So business operation is all about things like that, like what things are important. Like now we have new guidelines regarding COVID-19, right? So that's part of business operations. Now they're not probably putting in the exam, but I'm just using that as an example. Like laws and regulations, right? The different acts, the Davis Bacon Act, the Brooks Act, all of the different, the employment laws and OSHA, and what are the things that regulate you as a company. That's all part of this. Staffing requirements, right? Regulations, insurance, right? Ethics. Taking money from contractors that you recommend, or taking money from product manufacturers because you're recommending them, right? Is it ethical or is it not ethical? When is it ethical, right? Things like that. So going objective by objective, the first objective is assess resource within the practice. You will need to analyze the staffing needs of a practice and recommend criteria and protocols for hiring, staffing assignments, staff evaluations, staff scheduling, and professional development. The ARE 5.0 handbook, actually, the handbook of professional practice has a section on this that I would recommend. And I'll show you where and like what I recommend to do to study through this handbook. This handbook is huge. You can't read the whole handbook. Some people have tried to read it. In fact, I'll bet you try to read it all. It's not gonna work, right? It's too
It
big.
doesn't work.
So the key is let's piecemeal it into what really matters to us. And one thing now, I get geeky about this. The brain does not want to know it all. The brain wants to know what really matters to you. You know, so that's why even when you're driving, you could go from point A to point B and not know what happened. All us to the side, like there could have been an accident, and you don't even know anything about it because you're just looking at what matters to you, and the brain focuses on what matters to you. So the same thing is on these exams, on this process. So you want to be able to focus on the things that matter, on the practice that matter to the objectives that are here at hand, and so forth. Okay, so um then there are different in the book. You want to, again, going back to the point, you want to focus on what matters to you. If you were to read the whole book, your brain will say, what is it I'm going to be tested on? I don't even know. So let's focus on those sections. And there is this outline that we've gotten from Wiley, which is a book publisher, I believe, that says these are the sections you should focus on for each one of these sections. So objective number 1.2, apply the regulations and requirements governing the work environment. So you will need to demonstrate your understandings of laws, regulations, and insurance that apply to running a practice, including health insurance, worker compensation, general liability, and labor law. There's a great section there to pool site. Also, Kevin Greenlee has a great section on that, which I also have a copy of, so we can talk about it too. And I'm not sure if I have said it, but I'm a contributor to Kevin Greenlee's work on Plural site. I've done many of the slides and courses that were put together there by him. I was a contractor, or I guess to some extent partner on that on the putting together of that. So I have access to some of that, and we can have a session on those things too. Apply ethical standards to comply with accepted principles within a given situation. You will determine the appropriate responses to given situations, which demonstrate your understanding of laws, rules of conduct, and ethics in responding to client requests and business practices. Client requests, there may be some unethical client requests, because the client's telling you to violate the law doesn't mean you should, and you will not do that because you don't want to lose your practice, right? So you rather lose a client than lose your practice. And you wanna lose a client, not only then lose your practice, but then to hurt somebody, because at the end of the day, we're here to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. To apply again the ethical standards to comply with accepted principles. And so here I would try to read the AIA canons of ethics and the NCAR rule model conduct. I don't know if you've heard of those, but they are available online. Objective 1.4, apply appropriate standard of care within a given situation. So you will need to understand the standard of care and its implications on providing professional services, the impact of errors and omissions, the responsibility to appropriately address vulnerabilities and risks associated with climate change, and how to appropriately respond to unknown conditions in order to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. So this whole thing is just like, what is your procedure to dealing with fires in a practice? Fires of drawings that missed something, or before the drawings are issued, things that you should do. How to put out those fires before they become a lawsuit, or how to even put it out if they are about to become a lawsuit. So, sample item number one here is about utilization ratios and which person in the practice is the most suitable for a particular project. And it tells you an answer. And this is a sample question. You will encounter questions similar to these on the exam. Okay. This is another sample question about the different types of insurances that you will need on a practice. This is another type of question about standard of care. This is the word reasonable and prudent manner. Then we get to section 2, finances, risk, and development of a practice. So before we were dealing with insurances and things like that, and somehow with risks too, but here is money risks. Like, when can we lose money? How can we mitigate losing money? Things like that. And also here we focus a little bit more on how to protect or practice from those risks and liabilities. So objective number 2.1, evaluate the finance well-being of the practice. You will need, sorry, to be able to analyze financial data, business strategies, and the firm's strategic priorities to identify actions that position the practice properly. Now, the word positioning, right? Like, how do we financially position our practice financially properly? It may be opening up a whole sector. It may be that you not only do residential work, but you also do commercial work. It may be that you open another office in another location. And how do you evaluate that, right? It may be that, what type of staff members do you have in your practice that can enable you to do a completely different type of service. What softwares are you using that will allow you to position your firm ahead of all other firms? As a matter of fact, before I met with you today, I was actually putting together a presentation about Flow Design, my company, and our services, and how do we deliver them, right? Like, how we use Lumion and Revit and VR, and how do we execute our services, and it's just really showing how do we position ourselves on a unique place where we can thrive. So, that's one thing. So objective number 2, identify practice policies and methodologies for risk, legal exposure, and resolutions. I think this focuses more on contract and contract management. You will need to understand the implications of various types of projects, client types, and contract terms. All right. So there are clients that are very risky. Do you want them? Do you not want them? How do you go about them? There are projects that are very risky. Do you want them? Do you not want them? How do you go about them? And remember, every risk, there is a thing called risk and reward. There is like there should be a balance between the risk and the reward. If the project is too risky and the reward is very little, you shouldn't go for it, honestly. And now, again, I'm not trying to provide legal advice. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm just telling you what I would do under similar circumstances. Like if I've never done a skyscraper, I really think about doing a skyscraper. Although I run myself with the philosophy of I can take it all on, we'll figure it out. But hey, how much weight is too much weight? I cannot go to the gym and lift 400 pounds on chest press. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. It's not whether you're willing to do it or wanting to do it or able to do it. I You just have to know your limit. So if there's a project that you just don't know anything about, why would you even try to get in it? Now, if you are considering to get in it, what would you do? Well, how about hiring somebody that specializes on that? How about putting together a team that specializes on that? Yes, you can do that. Then you're gonna be well positioned. There is this thing, everybody says it. You do not invest in something you don't know anything about. You just don't do it, right? So do not get yourself into things that you just don't know anything about. Now, you can hire people that know, and you have to trust them. But you gotta still know enough to know whether what they're doing is right or wrong. So still, at the end of the day, this section two, you gotta know what project types are your niche, what client types are your niche, and what contract terms do you want on your contract. There, I haven't had many clients. Like actually, I haven't really had any client who mess with my contract to the point where I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? They read it, and after I explain the contract, they typically accept it as it is because it's fair. Um, but that's that. All right. So you will need to understand those implications of the projects, right? The contracts, the client types. Um, and this is all related to risk, legal exposure, and insurance coverage. Like my insurance right now covers me for single and multifamily projects. If I was to take on a skyscraper, I should probably call my insurance and make sure that they are going to cover me for that. Um, Now, I don't call my broker every day or every week or every month. I call him as needed whenever we not got to talk. But I have to think about whether I'm covered for that type of project or not, right? Because there's a limit. Then the application of conflict resolution and quality management techniques to various situations that arise within a practice is also a necessary component. How do we control quality on a project? And these, you know, you might say, well, Darwin, like has nothing to do with finances that you're having a person unrelated to the project reviewing the project. That's part of delivery. Well, it's part of delivery, but it's also part of quality control. So having a principle that has nothing to do with the job, reviewing drawings, is critical for the well-being of your practice financially, but also for you to deliver a good project. So you may have questions that have to do with that gray line between, is this a practice methodology or a PDD question, or like but it's, at the end of the day, it's about protecting your firm from risk. Objective 2.3: select and apply practice and strategies for a given business situation and policy. You will need to make decisions and understand the impact of those decisions related to negotiations of services, contracts, scope creep, and scope adjustments, as well as protecting intellectual property in a given business situation. Now, I can go on, and I'm not trying to make this presentation an ongoing forever type of thing. We're gonna get into the details of this, but I just want you to understand like what the brackets are and why they're there. Right? They really try to protect you and your practice from either going bankrupt, getting sued and going bankrupt because you don't have money to pay for all the legal fees, losing your license, and it really all nails down to hurting somebody somehow, like hurting the health, well-being, and welfare of the public. Okay, health, safety, and welfare of the public. And these are some samples of those. And this one is related to what is the utilization ratio of an architect and what is an utilization ratio. I can explain it right now, I can explain it later, but it's a factor related to how many hours does a person work that are built to a project, and how many hours does that person work that are just not built to a project. And if 80% of your hours are built to a project, 80% of your hours are billable. The other 20% are overhead, right? We're not making money off of those. A marketing department person is almost 100% overhead. They're non-billable. So you got to make sure that you have your staff team properly assigned and allocated for the different projects that they do. And these are some practice, like I said, some practice questions. Practice questions about agreements. Um, you know, you're gonna have tough questions and tough situations in life about people wanting to, nickel and dime you on your services, about people that, you know, honestly, because we're so globalized right now, and a lot of things are happening remotely. People are shopping around for, like, let's say, a camera on Best Buy, and Best Buy says, "I'll match the price if you send me another website." They think that architects should be doing the same thing. I don't see doctors doing that. I don't see lawyers doing that, like matching prices and things like that. We don't do that, right? Like, we may be able to do that, but again, there is a limit to how much of that shopping around and negotiations goes on. So if a client very, like, right from the get-go is shopping and nickel and diming with you, that's a sign. That's a sign that probably that's not a good client. That's not the client that you want. Okay. Um, Now, if you're a firm that focuses on volume, like, okay, you take it all in. But again, if you take it all in, that means you're also taking bad fish with you, meaning you're taking projects that may be like 100% liability. You have complete zero control over whether you're gonna get sued or not. You're gonna get sued, so you don't do that. So these are some agreements and things like that questions. Okay, and then we go to section 3, practice why deliver services. So here we analyze and determine response for client services request. Have you guys heard of a request for proposals? Yeah. Have you guys heard of a request for qualifications? Thumbs up. Yeah. So those are put out by many entities and institutions. Public job always do those are requests for qualifications or requests for proposals. That's required, at least in Massachusetts. I know about Massachusetts and the state that I'm licensed at, so they do that. Companies do that too. Like, big companies do that too. Single family projects, they don't do things like that. Like, they just shop around online and find an architect. Like, they don't really put out a request for qualifications. If they were to do that, then we probably have a lot better projects out there. That's just my say. Because we wouldn't just be competing on price, we will be competing on qualifications, which is what we want. So that's that. So, the section 1, like I said, the 3.1, one of the most important things you will need to do as an architect is assess the scope of services needed, completeness of requests, public interest conflict, and fee proposals based on there's a typo there, client's request prior to finalizing a contract with the client. I also have a complete class as to how to write a proposal the flow design way on YouTube. If you guys are interested in that, send me a message. I'll let you know about it, and you can watch it. It's the way that flow design does it. My office does it, and I have it out there. I'll tell you why. Because, like, I'm transparent about how I do business, and if a client wants to know how I write a proposal, I show them. And there's some business strategies, of course, I wouldn't show, but I would show you, right? Because, like, I'm transparent to some extent. Magicians are transparent. They show you their hands, but they don't show you what's underneath here or here, right? So I'm transparent, but I'm not gonna show you, like, like, all the tricks and tricks. Otherwise, then you're gonna be the architect. I'm the architect. So, long story short, I have that. If you're interested, let me know, and I'll get you access to it. So, objective 3.2, and again, section 3.1 is very, very important. Very, very important. If we want to do one proposal live, and Albelis, you happen to have worked here, Flo, and I try to teach you, you're probably doing that already. You probably have done it already, some
Yep.
side job. So, it's pretty straightforward. And proposals and contracts evolve over time. Like, my contract from a year ago, it's not the contract I have right now. Not by a long shot. Because every day I'm adding new clauses, new things I learned, new things I pick up, new things I was, like, losing money on, that, like, additional services. I wasn't outlining additional services. I wasn't outlining like mileage and things like that. Like there are things I was never charging for and things like that. So, um, and just keep in mind, I get specific even though we're talking about this, but when you're not charging for mileage and printing, you're losing profit. It's profit going down outside of your pocket. Profit should be in your pocket, right? You should not be paying for, you should not be financing somebody else's project. Never, 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 never. If you are, then you should be making interest on that. All right. That's a, we are business people. We got to be business people. There's a problem out there too in architecture, and I'm ranting a little bit right now. They're not, you don't get taught how to do business in architecture school. Like, like the first, like you get called for a side job, all of you probably have, and you don't even know how to charge them. You're like how much would you do to do a bathroom for me? And you're like, how much would you pay me? Like, no, like you should be able to sit down and say, okay, uh, here's how much I want to make on this job. Here's how much my time is worth. And or even, you know what, there's a number I would not work for less than that. I would not lift a pencil for less than $50. I would not lift a pencil for less than $150. You can put your own price, but again, you can either put your own price, here it is, and be very, very absurdly high, or you can try to be reasonable on your price. And how would you do it? Well, hourly rate. How much should I be making by the hour? Why is my overhead? If you want to think of yourself as a business, what's your overhead? How much you want to make as a profit? How much you make for you on your packet for your hourly time is different from how much you make for profit. And it's different because what you get on your pocket for you doing the work is one thing, but you should be getting paid also for your license, computer license, cell phone bill. A little bit of that money should go there. Your money shouldn't be for that. Like if I was actually to get from my paycheck from Flow to pay for the electricity and all these things, then like my hourly rate is $1 per hour. Like I would be losing my money. Your customers should be paying for your overhead. Your customers should be paying for your profit. Your customers should be paying for your time. All right. And that was my quick rant there. Again, if you guys want to learn more about business too, we can talk on the side, and we can do a class on that too. So analyze applicability of contract types and delivery methods. So have you guys heard of delivery methods? Delivery methods. Have you heard of what a delivery method is?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Contract types. Will you think about what a contract type might be? Contract type might be like a lump sum. Contract type might be an hourly contract, right? Like things like that, like
Mm.
or billing, right? And things like that. All right. Um, estimate the impact risk of changes to contracts. If a client is suggesting you to change something, will you do it? How much will you be able to do? Um, understand the impact of various delivery options for a given project, right? So, by the way, there's another type of the impact is all one. Objective 3.3: determine potential risk and or reward of a project and its impact on the practice. I spoke about that before, right? Risk and reward, risk and reward, risk and reward, right? Like you got to think about that stuff. And what's the liability? What's the risk? What's the opportunity? What's the anticipated benefit, right? And these are some of the sample items. Project schedule, specialty consultants require, level of risk associated with the project, things to consider on a new project. The different types of delivery methods that you might recommend your client for a different type of project. Now, the delivery method affects your services, and that's more of a B101 type of world. But if it's a fast track project, it means we're working, issuing packages, boom, boom, boom. Very stressful. A lot of coordination work needs to be done very quickly. You got to charge more for that. Why? Well, why? If a project is
Because
supposed,
you're
yeah,
taking more risk.
if a project's supposed to take 3 months and you're doing it in 1 week, right? Should you be making the same amount of money as though it was supposed to be done in 3 months?
Nope, definitely not.
No, you should be making more. You should be asking for a premium for that time, because one, uh Technically, if the project was to take 3 months, you would probably do the project with 3 people. If it's supposed to be done in a week, you probably do it with 8. You're gonna have to get more people involved, and to get it right. And then that, just it's costing you a lot of money up front. um but also, the risk, right? Risk and reward, you may miss something. It's just a lot of stress, right? The time involved, energy involved, stress involved, coordination involved, liability involved, right? All of that. And these are the different delivery methods, practice methodologies. So that's the fourth one, and it only has two sections. It's analyze the impact of practice methodologies relative to structure and organization of the practice. This is how you organize your practice, right? I don't know if you heard of horizontal practice structure, vertical practice structure, horizontal, or broken down into studios, right? Is there a principal, and then a manager, and then a and then this, and then this, how does it work? Is it a pyramid type of practice, things like that. So architects must be able to examine various ways to structure a practice to achieve the firm's goals. Right now, my office is basically divided into two studios. Marco Severino has a studio. Darwin Fortuna has a studio. We combine them as needed. I will have, we're 8 people, so 4 of them might be all in one project. There was one project we did that 3 of us were working on the same project at the same time, and Marcus will be just reviewing the drawings because he's not involved in the project itself. Um, but they may be multiple ways of organizing the project. Like I may have people from Marco's studio to help me with my project also, or he may have people from my studio to help him, and so forth. So it's a hybrid, and it's all about achieving the goals of the office, right? Like Marcos may have a deadline, let's say Wednesday. I have a deadline on Tuesday. I may say, hey, Marcos, can I use the whole office on Monday to achieve that Tuesday and finish it by Tuesday noon? And then you can have the whole office to finish that other deadline that you have on Wednesday, so that we can achieve profit on time and not delay the money coming in. Also, financially, you get to play priorities. Well, guess what? We have two projects. One is due in 6 weeks. Another one is due in 4 weeks. The project due in 4 weeks is gonna pay us $30,000. The project that's due in 6 weeks is gonna pay us $10,000. Doesn't it make sense to get all hands on deck to finish the project in 4 weeks? That's important, and even finish it before. Yeah, because that's gonna cover overhead, profit, and all that stuff. And I'm not saying that one client is better than the other. I'm saying we're gonna meet both deadlines. Well, why not focus our resources onto the deadline that's most critical path? You're gonna hear that before later on. You're gonna hear the word critical path. Objective form. Let me. Okay. Like the 4.1, architect must be able to examine various ways of structure and practice to achieve the firm's goals. This requires you to have an understanding of the various business structures and the role evidence-based design plays in order to achieve the firm goals. Now, there's a whole section on what evidence-based design is on the Architect's Handbook of Professional Practice. I recommend you to read it. Objective 4.2, evaluate, design, coordination, and documentation methodologies for the practice. It may be that you have an outside consultant that reviews your drawings. It may be that you have a senior project manager that reviews all of your drawings. It may be that you have a checklist, some sort of checklist that helps you establish quality control. It may be that you're facing projects into different stages and things like that. All right. So you may have different ways that you achieve the goals that you want. And again, you want to balance. I mean, at the end of the day, we're a business, right? Like, and even us as entities, if our business was the business of breathing, we got to do everything we need to be able to breathe. It's like we got to have our nose open, our mouth open. We got to have access to oxygen. So our business of architecture is it's not just about producing buildings and designs. We gotta eat. If we can't eat, that's the most basic thing. If we can't eat, pay our bills, then we're just running a charity. We're not a charity, we're a business. So you got to be able to make money, and to make money, you got to deliver a product, and you got to deliver the best product you can possibly deliver at the best price, with the best time, for your clients that you can, and make a profit for it. You know. So you must be able to evaluate the impact of various methodologies, such as, like I said, evidence-based design, integrated for delivery, I don't know if you've heard of the IPD. Is It's kind of quiet now. I mean, it's relatively new. It had a boom, and then I don't hear much about IPD anymore. Like it's just maybe the work that we do it's not doesn't lend itself for that. And analyze how these methodologies impact quality control and security throughout all phases of the project. And these are some examples. Different types of firm structures, right? What kinds of firm structures are we gonna do? That's part of practice methodologies. Because the type of structure that you are or business entity that you are, it will trigger a way of working. Are you a partnership? Are you a limited liability company? Are you a S corporation? Are you a corporation? And that positions your firm also in the bigger market. Are you able to do things that you want to do? And we have all of that. When do we do quality control checks and things like that, right? At the end, by a third party. There's a whole section on that. And these shows you the different books that are referenced by the AI Reform 5.0 handbook. That these are the things the things that they recommend you to study. And to be honest, with that alone and me, you're good. Really. The handbook of professional practice, the 2020 Code of Ethics, which I don't have the 2020. I actually should go get it. The legislative guidelines and model law, model regulations, the model rule of conduct, the B101 and the C401, and you're golden. All right. There are more resources that they have at the end of this. I think I don't know if they have it at the end of this one, like the previous one. Let's take a look. Yeah, they do. All of the blue ones. Okay, so they probably are more. And that was my introduction to the practice management exam as it relates to the ARE 5.0 handbook. If you have any questions, now is the time to talk about them, and then we're gonna jump into more specific areas and elements that we need to prepare for when we're doing the exam.